Blueprint to Your Success Story, Essential Power Words and Workbook, all written by Dr. John A. Chuback, physician and surgeon from New Jersey. I'm Dr. Paul Reeves, your host and moderator, also host of Dr. Paul's Family Talk radio show. Also as part of the panel, Dr. Diane Chuback, CEO of Chuback Medical Group, and Dr. Deborah Waitley, psychologist and author from California. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we take you through the entire book, The Blueprint to Your Success Story, Essential Power Words and Workbook, all written by Dr. John A. Chuback, MD. Welcome to episode 6 of the Blueprint to Your Success Story, Essential Power Words and Workbook, all written by physician-surgeon Dr. John A. Chuback from New Jersey. Let's meet our panel this morning, starting with the author of the book, again, physician-surgeon from New Jersey, Dr. Chuback. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Good morning, Dr. Reeves. How are you? It's good to be back.
Good to have you with us, as always. The CEO of Chuback Medical Group, Dr. Diane Chuback. Good morning, Diane. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you.
All right. Glad to have you too. And from San Diego, California, author and psychologist, Dr. Deborah Waitley. Good morning, Deborah. How are you today?
Good morning. So great to see all of you.
The band, not only is the band back together, the band is still together, right? We have our roles, Paul, John, and we determined Ringo and George last week. We'll just leave that alone for now. All right, we are determined to get through 3 words today again, Dr. Chuback, starting with the word determination. Why don't you take it from right there?
Great. Let's start with the dictionary definition. Determination is a noun, and the definition is a quality that makes you continue trying to do or achieve something that is difficult. And then we have my thoughts on the word determination. Winners are a determined lot. As Brian Tracy says, highly successful individuals are unstoppable. Where others may be deterred, the superachievers continue to forge straight ahead. There are so many obstacles in life, so many potential pitfalls. It seems that every day when we get out of bed, there is someone or something attempting to discourage and dissuade us from achieving our full potential. The winning set is not hindered or impeded by these negative forces, and they understand they are simply a normal part of everyday life in the real world. Life is not a rose garden. In fact, as you travel deeper into the garden of life, the more thorns, vines, and thickets you are likely to encounter. Don't let these frustrating and aggravating obstructions impede your momentum in any significant way. A determined attitude is like a razor-sharp machete, hacking through the metaphoric jungle of brush, thistle, and bramble. Determination is that force which keeps the victorious few treading and moving forward. It is a trait worth cultivating. You cannot succeed without it. This is an essential element of the success-oriented personality because the wind will not always be at your back in life. There will be many times when the headwind may seem endless and oppressive, but never stop putting one foot in front of the other. With time, the winds always change direction, and you will enjoy good times when your sail is full and taut. Always find the fortitude and will to proceed in a positive direction, even when the progress seems minimal. Remain determined, and over time, unexpected breakthroughs will allow for sudden bursts of headway in your personal voyage toward an exceptional life. And then we come to a nice quotation from Og Mandino, who lived from 1923 to 1996, who was an American author and success educator, personal development educator, who said, "Failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough."
All right, let's turn to Dr. Diane Chuback, CEO of Chuback Medical Group. How about your thoughts on the word determination and what it has meant to you and what it continues to mean to you?
You know, when I think of the word determination, I think of kind of the expression of saying to yourself, it's not if I reach that goal, it's when I reach that goal. You know, that's sort of a nice way to think about determination. And, you know, it's the quality of being determined means you just possess that will. Mm-hmm. And when John is talking a lot about, you know, in his description of the word in the book, you know, he talks about determination, when you're trying to get somewhere, it's invariably you're going to come up against, obstacles and headwinds and, the thicket and the brush and the weeds and, but it is that someone who possesses determination that can get through that, and get to their end goal. And, some of my favorite quotes actually have to do with determination. And I think everybody knows this one from Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep going. Favorite quote.
Yeah.
Also another one, Confucius. It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop. Right. So, that just is just wonderful. I think that's great for the listeners to know. Even, it's the idea that even ordinary people can do extraordinary things. It's just a matter of sticking to it, perseverance, determination. Recently, John and I were having a conversation. I don't really remember the context of it, but we were talking about the idea of sort of Newton's first law of inertia. And it's like, a body in motion, a body at rest stays in rest. A body in motion stays in motion unless it is acted upon by some unbalanced force. So, this is life, of course. A body in motion will stay in motion. Yeah, if you live in a vacuum, of course, you're going to have all kinds of friction. You're going to have all kinds of obstacles. So, this is really where, you have to find that determination. And determination is not necessarily something that is innate or you're born with. There's always things that you could do to improve the quality of, your own determination. A very famous author, I'm sure you all are familiar with, is Stephen Covey. He was a world-renowned author who wrote The 7 Habits of highly successful people. Mm-hmm. And his quote having to do with this is really just to stay focused and to make the main thing the main thing. And it's just, and the advice that he gives for someone to develop their sense of determination is to stay proactive. So and it's not just like in relation to one goal, but, elevate this to your life in general. Be proactive with where you want to go with your life. Because if you know the end point, in other words, he says, begin with the end in mind. So if you see the end point and you have that vision for either a goal or for your life in general, it's much easier to, just keep your radar on and keep moving toward it, just keep moving all of the other obstacles out of the way. And I thought that was just such a beautiful way of putting it. And, just for our lives overall, like I said, not just for goals.
That's a great way to put it. And I like the way you said, basically determine the outcome and then constantly shoot for that. And I'll have some more to say on that in a few moments, but I want to turn to Dr. Deborah Waitley, psychologist and author from California. Your thoughts on determination?
Yes, when I first hear determination, I'm taken back to my childhood and growing up with my father, Dennis Waitley, who used that word a lot. I think it was one of the 10 traits of a total winner in the psychology of winning, was positive self-determination. So when I hear that word, the first things that come to mind are the little engine that could. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. So I'm thinking of that little engine just chugging up the hill, trying to get to the top of the hill. And that just demonstrates the power of our mind. And as Diane, it really has a lot to do with what your goal is, keep that end point in mind. So what is it that is fueling you to reach that destination? So determination is that it's having that fixation of your will towards that goal. So it's almost like there's this determine, like to predetermine. So it's almost like you program your mind for that end result. And it becomes a question of not, I think I can, or not just I think I can, but it's almost like I know I can, because you've already brought that goal into the present. So I really like that. And as Diane said, it's not something we're just born with. Some people maybe have a personality characteristic that they seem to be more determined, but a lot of it has to do with how powerful is your desire for that end result. And that's what fuels that determination along the way.
Yeah, excellent. Very well said. And a couple of thoughts on this. John and I were talking during a separate interview at least a year ago, if not longer ago, when we were talking about something similar to this. And I said, well, in education, it's called outcomes-based education. And whereas you determine exactly what you want the students to learn and how much of it and how deeply, and then you make the plan to get there. And when I was a younger teacher, still in my 20s, really not that experienced, that's what I did. Even though I'd never heard of outcomes-based education, it wasn't taught to me. It wasn't a term that I ever used before, but it just made common sense. Like if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And one day the assistant superintendent came in and he said, we've been watching you and I want you to give a speech and a presentation to the entire district, 1,000 teachers and on outcomes-based education. I thought, I don't even know what that is. And I had to tell him, I'm not sure what that is. He goes, you don't know what it is? He goes, that's what you do every day. That's what you've been doing. We've been watching you. And you know what? So I wasn't aware that I was doing that. I was just planning for he goes, that's what outcomes-based education is. Now, would a bunch of 50 and 60-year-old teachers listen to a punk 25-year-old teacher tell them? No, they wouldn't. So I managed to squeeze out of that one. But that's, to me, that's what determination is. And, Deborah, you said, I think I can. Then you changed it to, I know I can. That's what determination is to me. It's, you decide where you want to go and how you want to get there, and then you just go. And if you have to change course along the way, you change it. But the ultimate goal, the reaching of the goal, is not negotiable because we're going to get there. I'm not sure how yet, but we're going to get there if we have to change our plans along the way. Dr. John Chuback, typically you like to weigh in after you've heard the three of us speak. And what do you have to say on all of this about determination?
I think it's all fantastic. And as I sit here and listen, I'm thinking again about, and the book is about words, and we all love words so much. We think in words and we think in pictures. It's ironic, I think, when you look at the root of the word determination. We know what determination is, and we just discussed that. But at the root, I think, is the word deter. Mm-hmm. And that has the opposite connotation. And I was just looking as we were chatting at the root of that word and the etymology of that word. And it comes from de, which means away, and in Latin, terrere, which means frighten. So to deter is to frighten away. So this is the opposite of that, saying I'm not going to be frightened away from my goals, from my dreams, from my desires, from my ambitions. Mm-hmm. I'm determined to progress in the direction that I want. So I think that's a very interesting play on words, and understanding the root of the word is important. When we talked about courage, and we talked about encouragement, to put courage in someone else. So in this material, I think we're going to find again and again, especially when we talk about the mind, the psychology, emotions, etc., that fear and courage are so much at the root of all of our success and failure in our lives. And that's a part, I think, that resonates with Deborah and Diane very much as well. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about that subject as we proceed through the book.
Deborah mentioned football last week and Justin Herbert and all that he's done so far in his career. And I think back to when I played baseball, and I used to use this with students and even staff when I would teach them about whatever was coming up. When I went up to bat, the pitcher was determined to get me out. He had one goal, and that was to get me out, strike me out, have me hit a weak ground ball. He didn't care how he got me out, but he was determined to get me out. And, of course, I was determined to get on base. I didn't care how I got on base. I hit an error, hit me in the head. I don't care, but I'm going to find a way to get on base. And at some point, I realized I had to be more determined than he was to even have a fighting chance. And then I would actually talk to the pitcher, but not out loud, of course. You get thrown out of the game for that. But I would say, I'm going to get a hit. I know you're trying to get me out, but go ahead, throw your best stuff, and I'll hit it somewhere. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. Baseball, it's not 100% game at all, but there's some of that too. There are forces out there that are just as determined as you are to have you not succeed or to succeed more than you. And so to keep your determination up there, it takes strength as well. Deborah, do you agree with that, or have you seen that before?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
100%. I love that you just brought this up. And I just wanted to add one thing. John, when you brought up the root of the word, I had no idea it was
Yeah.
detour, that which stands in front of us. So, John, in your description, a lot of what we tie determination is in with those obstacles. Like you just said, Paul, that which keeps us from achieving our goals. So, a little play on words then, if you take D-E-Ter, T-E-R, and add M-I-N-E, deter, mine, you make that energy mine. You bring it back to you. So you're faced with that deterrence, that obstacle, and you say, nope, I'm going to bring it back, and I'm determined to, like you just said, Paul, you out-determine that picture.
As often as I could.
Right.
Diane, any last comments on the word determination?
No, it's all good. This is, I mean, I love the breaking down the word parts and everything like that. We should do that more.
Yeah, definitely. So, Dr. Chuback, any last thoughts on determination? Just let me know when you're ready to move on.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. Deborah is certainly her father's daughter, because what she just did with the word mine at the end there, that is some really classic Dennis Waitley, utilization of language and manipulation of words in a really valuable way. I mean, that was really well done. Kudos. I mean, I love that, making it mine,
Cool.
I'm going to take.
I can add something else right now.
Go ahead, do it.
Well, mine, how we always used to talk about the goal mind?
Right.
Well, this is the goal mind.
Exactly.
So, it's the mind and the mind, but the goal is so tied to determination. It's we make the goal mine through determination.
Absolutely. Love it.
So, John, you're
Cool.
thinking Deborah actually listened to what her dad had to say as she was growing up? Is that what you're implying?
Whether her conscious mind was listening or not, the subconscious was wide awake.
The subconscious is blossoming.
Exactly.
It was just osmosis.
That part we can never get rid of, and nor would we want to in the case of all of these wonderful experiences we've had.
That's right.
But the subconscious is always awake and alert. That's one of the things that we talk about in Make Your Own Damn Cheese. The subconscious and the superconscious mind never rest. They're always thinking and always at work, even though we're not aware of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably exhibit 1A as to why you should listen to your parents, right? That's what we all tell our kids. Like, look at Deborah. Look what she's done with her life because she listened to her dad.
Correct. And because of the exposure, just being around. Just being around. Sometimes the conscious mind is fighting it. The conscious mind is trying to put up a barrier, but the subconscious mind is very much linked to the five senses. And especially, as we've talked about many times before, at a young age, before the age of 8, before the psychic barrier between the conscious and the subconscious mind has formed, all of those ideas and exposures and tastes and smells and foods and rituals and customs and so forth are pouring directly into the subconscious mind and programming us for good or bad. And it's when we understand that process that later in life, hopefully we can kind of look at that filing cabinet of the subconscious mind and clean it up a little bit, rewrite some programs that we don't like, and then reinforce the programs that we do.
All right. Very good. Why don't we move on to the next word now in your book? The next word is dream. Why don't you take it from there?
Dream. A noun. The definition is an idea or vision that is created in your imagination and that is not real. Something that you have wanted very much to do, be, or have for a long time. And then my thoughts on the word dream. This is the process of goal setting, taking those dreams and turning them into goals. Having a dream is the first element in the blueprint of success. Of course, the final step that differentiates success from failure is the ability to act on those goals, setting a plan in motion and following through on that plan until the dream becomes a reality. The only real failure comes from not trying. This is the hard part. The human imagination is programmed for dreaming, wishing, and hoping for wonderful things to happen. But how many of us can turn those wonderful, far-reaching desires into reality? Sadly, I believe very few. Study successful people and you'll quickly learn that their success started in a very common way. They had a dream of some sort. They wished to be well educated or to have a beautiful home overlooking the sea, to marry a beautiful princess or get swept away by a charming prince. These kinds of dreams are natural, if not universal, particularly among young people. These are wonderful ambitions. Everyone should entertain such magnificent thoughts. Why not you? Why shouldn't you have a gorgeous new Ferrari, a stable of Arabian horses, or live the quiet life in a cottage by the sea? Someone will enjoy such luxuries in life. Why not you? You must first believe you are deserving of such treasures. You must have complete faith in your own incredible self-worth. As I said, there are thousands of people who drive Ferraris and own Arabian horses. Can they all be so incredibly special? I think not. I think that people like you and me are every bit as good and every bit as deserving as they are. But you must believe. If you don't, then any hope of achieving such success will be dashed from the outset. Be a dreamer, a goal setter, and a doer. Do it because you can. No one can stand in the way of your dreams but you. What's your story? Think big, dream big, and take big action starting right now. You will be absolutely shocked by your true innate potential and capacity for almost surreal levels of success. Many dream of a better life. Dreaming is the first step to obtaining what you want. First come the thoughts, then the deeds. And then we come to a quote by John Lennon, the English songwriter, record producer, artist, writer, and activist, known best for his work obviously with the Beatles, who lived from 1940 to 1980. His life unfortunately was cut short on the streets of New York far too early. And he said, "You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one." That actually brings chills up my spine to read that quote and the impact that he had on really the citizenship of the world at large. And with that, Paul, I'll turn it back to you.
When I was first reading through this a month or two ago, whenever I first got the book, as I was reading this article, before I flipped the page and saw the bottom quote by John Lennon, that song came to my mind. Imagine. It just starts off with the word imagine. That's the name of the tune, I think. And that's the beginning of dreaming. It really is. And Dr. Deborah Waitley, psychologist and author from California, let's turn to you first this time. The word dream.
Yes, thanks for the reading of that, John. That quote also gives me chills too, especially the part, "I'm not the only one." So this is where every person in the world, we can all come together in equality because we all can dream, and we forget the power of dreams. We all have the ability to dream, and we lose sight of that. And we also start, as John mentioned, you have to believe in your dreams. And we forget that we even can dream, that it's practical to dream, that our dreams can come true. And so the very definition states that it's something in the imagination that's not real. So what do? We immediately start talking ourselves out of our dreams. And I remember my dad's definition of a goal is a dream with a deadline. And I remember not liking that definition because it brought this magnificent concept of dream. And to me, it narrowed it down into the realm of goal. But what I saw with that, it was a way to make your dreams a reality, is to start setting some goals towards that higher vision. And I know one thing that I always tried to incorporate in workshops that I gave was in goal setting workshops to try to get people to approach the realm of their dreams was to go with the BHAG. Have you guys heard of BHAG? I don't know why or how that started getting used, but it's the big, hairy, audacious goal. And so it would be this thing like, you got to have your BHAG, you got to have your BHAG. And I thought, what in the heck is that? But it's think and dream your wildest dreams. And a dream is, what I love about that, as opposed to a goal, it's so much more than a goal. It encompasses all your subconscious, conscious, superconscious. Anything's possible in a dream. And we just have to have faith in and believe we're worthy of that. So there's a lot tied into making those come true.
Yeah, very well said. Dr. Diane Chuback, CEO Chuback Medical Group, your thoughts on the word dream?
Yes, a very good point about, just right at the end of what Deborah said, we have to feel worthy of it. When I was reading John's description, and we finished off with that quote, about the music, and so then my thoughts immediately went to one of my favorite quotes, Wayne Dyer, who was one of the most prolific writers, and we've lost him, in the personal development world. But he said, don't die with the music still inside of you. And John has said this to me, on different occasions, and things when we talk about things that we would love to do, or things we'd like to have, places we'd love to go. I often think of my mother, unfortunately, who passed away 19 years ago, and it was her dream to go back to her family's homeland of Ireland. But the dream was never realized, because she did wind up getting sick, and lost her battle to cancer. And so that really, this idea of don't die with the music still inside of you is really, really, oh gosh, I almost get teary eyed thinking about it. But it's powerful to me, right? So I use that to motivate myself to say, okay, well, I have dreams, and there are things that I want to do. And again, I go back to the idea that, maybe there's someone out there listening and say, well, I'm not really a dreamer. But yes, you can cultivate this. You can work on this. And, what Wayne Dyer talks about in actually a very famous essay, Dream and You Shall Become, ... is that, if we allow our everyday lives, our daily lives, where we have chores and we have habits, when we just practice safety, and, we're just going through the motions, and we're doing things just because of the convenience of it. And then we take on the other side and we think about, well, what are we dreaming about? Are we spending enough time, of our energy, thinking about our dreams? So he says, you should make a chart, right? So on one column, you have, okay, this is my daily existence. On the other side, you have, okay, these are my dreams. Make it a point to spend your energy, more energy, commit to it, make time for it, put it in your schedule to sit and dream, to just have those wonderful mental meanderings, that you can, just spend your energy on that. Because when we put our energy into something, it's more likely, and what is that energy? That energy is our time, is our thoughts, it's like a currency in our lives that we could either save or we could spend. But what Wayne Dyer says is that, you things work in a process. They start with your dreams, and then if we add energy to them, then they become thoughts. And if we add energy yet to that, it becomes actions. And therefore now, we've aligned ourselves with our dreams, and we're actually, living those dreams. So, but this is, something that, again, it's just a conscious effort to just really spend the time on our dreams, give it some energy.
Yeah, it's the best way to say it. You start with the dream, and then you start with the goal, and then you start actually doing something to get that done. And I've known some people who did the dreaming part really well, and then they just kind of stayed there, and nothing came to fruition at all. And I remember, one of my, I don't want to call him a hero, but one of the people I admired quite a bit in terms of leadership was the baseball manager, Sparky Anderson. Of course, he won the World Series with Cincinnati, then he went to Detroit. And when he got there in '79, it was kind of a ragtag team. They'd had several years of futility. And he said, we're going to win the World Series within 5 years. And a reporter said, Sparky, you're just dreaming. That's not going to happen here. And he said, oh, yeah? He goes, watch me. And son of a gun, his fifth year, they won the World Series in Detroit because he had a goal. And then, he made the plan to get there. And then he did the deeds to get everybody there. And it's just amazing how that works out. And John, you've talked a lot about in other shows that we've done together, basically everything that's come to fruition in life was the result of at least a dream to get the whole thing started. And you talked about Henry Ford wanting to put a car in everybody's driveway, everybody's garage. I'm sure a few people thought he was a nutcase. Like, oh, come on, Henry, that's ridiculous. We have enough horses to go around here. We don't need cars around. And you mentioned the same thing about the Wright brothers. They had a dream. Wouldn't it be great if we could just fly everywhere? I'm sure people thought they were kind of nuts as well, but that was their dream. And then they made a plan to get there, and they, however they got there, they got there. And turning back to you, John, your thoughts on what you've heard so far, and also maybe comment on your thoughts on a dream as it applies to everything starts with a dream.
Yeah, well, all great things. As always, I'm taking notes feverishly, learning a lot. Um, I think that it brings us back to the classic quote from Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, from his classic 1936 book, where he said, "Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." And that's a very, very important statement. It sounds very simple, and Deborah touched on it. But again, going back to the material that we go over so carefully, Paul, in Make Your Own Damn Cheese, the believe part, the conceive part is the imagination, what we see in the mind's eye. That is in the conscious mind, the thinking mind, the intellectual mind. That's very different than the believe part. The believe is the emotional mind, the subconscious mind, the ideas that we have actually fallen in love with, our paradigms, our beliefs. What Dennis Waitley, Brian Tracy have often referred to as the self-concept. Who do I see myself as really in this world? Not who I think myself as, but who do I believe that I am? If you want to know who I believe I am, look at my results. The results never lie. My surrounding, my environment, as James Allen said, my environment is but a looking glass, a mirror of my subconscious mind and my beliefs about myself and who I am and what role I play in this world. So the conscious mind says, this is what I conceive, this is what I imagine and dream my life to be like. The subconscious mind says what I believe, and that drives my habitual behaviors, and those habitual behaviors lead to my results. So what the mind can conceive and believe, two different parts of the mind, conscious and subconscious, it can achieve. Conceiving is not enough. Dreaming is not enough. Imagining is not enough. You have to imagine and imagine and imagine and dream and dream and dream over and over and over until the subconscious mind falls in love with that idea, until that idea percolates through what we call the psychic barrier and impregnates the subconscious mind. Then those habitual beliefs and habits lead to our results. So that's number one. And number two, it's very interesting. I was not really anticipating this as we started the program. Not today's program, the program overall, I mean. But we keep going back to childhood. Very, very Freudian, perhaps, in a sense. But we keep going back to the child's mind and the kid in us. And the importance of childhood, which I just spoke about a moment ago, how before the age of 8, let's say, the subconscious mind is wide open. How the Jesuits said for 400 years, give me the boy until the age of 8 and I'll show you the man. The child's mind is prone to dreaming, imagination, fantasy, make-believe. The adult mind is much more concrete, much more practical, much less imaginative. Those ideas have been quashed already. Those ideas have been put aside. That's childish thinking. But that kid in you allows you to sing and to paint and to draw and to skip and to play and to sculpt and to build with blocks and to use your imagination and make up stories and all of those things. And I'm seeing again and again through this book and through this material how we have to really embrace the child's mind. Brings me to one last thought. I was reminded, as a result of all of this, by a book I haven't read probably in 30 years, maybe more. A book that a friend introduced me to called Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. I don't know if you're all familiar with that book, by Robert Fulghum. And I haven't thought about that book in a long time. And after this show, I'm going to go back and read that book again. And I think it's very interesting how doing this program has brought me back around to this idea of the child's mind and the child in all of us, and how that's so linked to the conscious and the subconscious and the belief system. And I'm just thrilled. I just think this is really, really powerful information.
Yeah, very much so. Diane Chuback, any final thoughts on the word dream?
Well, I mean, John talks about Bob Proctor a lot, and he's a great mentor, I guess, for all of us. But it goes back again to the law of attraction. I mean, that which you dream, you think, and that you're in search of is in search of you. And if you just really dream big, you know,
Yeah.
it's only good stuff.
I mean, really, if you dream small, are you ever going to accomplish anything big? Probably not, right?
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you shoot for 10%. Your highest level is 10%. Congratulations, you made 10%, but there's another 90 out there waiting to be had. So,
Yes.
psychologist, author Deborah Waitley, how about you? Final thoughts on the word dream?
Yes, I love how we do keep circling back to our childhood, because that is when we were at our best at dreaming in our lives. So there's a difference between a goal and a dream, and children aren't as good with goals as they are with dreams. So a goal is a want your mind makes, and you could say a dream is a wish your heart makes. And I'm not sure if Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio said that, but that's coming back. The subconscious is coming back to me. But that John talked about bringing that emotion into it, and so did Diane. And I think that's so important. When you say, what's your greatest dream? Oh, I want to win the lottery. Well, you could put that, you can't make winning the lottery a goal, but you can bring in the emotions around what would that feel like if I had that freedom of winning the lottery, if that dream came true. So I just want to add one more quote, because we talked about, well, in childhood, we were great dreamers, but we're losing that ability now. Well, we can always, as we said earlier, dream no matter how old we are. And there's one quote that I love, and it's one of those, you're getting old when, and not to say that old is bad. Old is just a erroneous perception that we're running out of time, right? So it's just this perception that maybe we don't have as much time as we thought. But you're getting old when your memories are more important than your dreams. So we always must keep dreaming.
Yeah, very well said. Dr. Chuback, you want to wrap it up on the word dream? Final thoughts?
Yes, again, every time you guys speak, it brings to mind some great thoughts. Deborah uses the example of the lottery ticket. It says you can't set as a goal to win the lottery ticket, the lottery, but you can dream of winning the lottery. And if you want to turn it into any sort of a goal, you need to buy a ticket, right? So there's an old joke about that, about the guy who's, very upset with God, and he's shaking his fist in the air and he's saying, "You've forsaken me. I need this money. I really need this money. Why don't you ever let me hit the lottery?" And then this booming voice comes from the heavens. He says, "Pal, meet me halfway, buy a ticket." It's like, God, the infinite intelligence is there. The source is there to respond to us, but we have to participate in the program. So again, it's funny, but it brings us back to another theme that we're talking about again and again. Buying the ticket is taking a chance, right? That when you go to a fundraiser and say, "Would you like to buy a chance?" Right? You're taking a chance. Taking a chance, another way of saying taking a chance, is taking a risk, right? What am I risking? I'm risking my $5. I'm risking my $2. I'm risking my $50 for the raffle, whatever it is. It's a risk. What is risk associated with, once again? Fear. What does fear require? Or what does courage require? Overcoming fear. It's not the lack of fear, it's the ability to overcome fear. Little fears, like buying the lottery ticket. I have a business partner who said, "I would never buy that. It's ridiculous. You can never win." I said, "But people win every week." He says, "Yeah, but when you look at it mathematically and the probability," I said, "Yeah, but that's mathematics and probability. That's the adult grown-up mind talking again. That's the logical mind." Right. I mean, somebody wins the Powerball and the Mega Millions eventually within every few weeks or a couple of months or whatever it is. But as the old adage is, you got to be in it to win it. And that's not just for the lottery, that's life. You got to be in it to win it. You've got to be taking a chance. You've got to be making a move. You've got to be taking a stance. You've got to write the book. You've got to invite the friends to participate in the podcast. You've got to take the piece of clay and shape it into something. Make a move, make something, do something, take a chance, jump off the log into the water. And I just think that these ideas, they're so fundamental, but they're so powerful. They're really, really powerful.
I like to say to people, not just about the lottery, but about anything. If they say, well, the odds are overwhelming, winning the lottery is a gazillion to one. I say, well, that's true. But if you buy a ticket and win, then the odds are 100% in your favor. So it's just another way to look at it, right, John?
That
Yeah.
is good.
Mm-hmm.
John, I just want to add, I love your take a chance, make a stance. Is that yours or did you get that?
Did I say that? I don't even know.
That came up. No, it's really good.
Since I don't remember
Take a chance,
saying it,
make
you
a
could
stance.
use it as your own.
Whoa, that was great. And it brought to mind, well, that is belief. Like when you buy a lottery ticket, you believe you might win. You just might. And so that's tied in with that dream.
Right. In order to buy the ticket, you don't necessarily believe you're going to win, but you're demonstrating that you believe that you have just as good a chance as anybody
Right.
else. And that's the essence of this material. I have just as good a chance at succeeding at whatever it is that I desire in this world as anybody else, whether it's becoming a PhD in psychology, a PhD in neurochemistry, a PhD in education, an MD. If someone else can do it, I can do it. If somebody else can hit the lottery by dumb luck, I could be the victim of dumb luck too.
Right.
Right? I'm just as good as you.
Right.
So,
Right.
but on the other hand, if somebody can work their way toward a PhD, I can too. If somebody could practice their way toward hitting a major league curveball, I can too. But the moment you say I can't, then it's over. If you allow those self-limiting beliefs to be the barometer of what you can achieve, they will be. You know, there's a beautiful little book called U Squared by Price Pritchett, and Price Pritchett was nice enough to write a beautiful testimonial for me in Make Your Own Damn Cheese, because he's one of the characters that we loosely base a character, Price, on him. And Price Pritchett says in his wonderful little book, it's almost a pamphlet. I mean, it's maybe 35 pages, but so powerful. He says in that book, when it comes to success and achievement and whatever, get out of the way. You, yourself, get out of the way, because the biggest obstacle, the biggest hurdle that each of us face, I believe, is not the system and the politicians and the government and the insurance companies and, you know, whomever and whatever. The biggest obstacle is ourself. And if you would just get out of the way, you'd give yourself a heck of a lot better chance of getting to where you're going.
Yeah, very well said. You know, what was that quote, Deborah? Take a chance. What was that again?
Take a chance, make a stance.
See, John, I think you should have the frame that goes around your license plate on your car. I think it should say that on the bottom of that.
I'm going to get a T-shirt. It's easier.
Maybe a coffee mug. Sell those. I think that'd be great. All right, Dr. John A. Chuback, the author of the book. Why don't we continue on? The next word is drive.
Okay. Drive. Let's start with the dictionary definition. It's a noun. Definition: an impelling, culturally acquired concern, interest, or longing, a drive for perfection. And then I talk about how I feel about this word drive. Successful people have a drive others lack. To be driven is to feel a compelling need to work at something, even when there's no obvious impetus to do so. Where this innate tendency comes from seems a bit mysterious. Perhaps some is truly genetic, in other words, how one is wired from birth. This may go hand in hand with the so-called type A personality. It's also likely that drive can be fostered, taught, and nurtured from a young age, depending on what environmental factors the child is exposed to. These factors are hard to prove or disprove, and empirically speaking, we all have seen examples of actual individuals who appear to prove or disprove each of these theories. For example, we all know people who were raised in a family of high achievers who amounted to little and had a reputation for being lazy and shiftless. Conversely, we all know stories of individuals who come from meager and oftentimes dysfunctional households who go on to achieve extraordinary levels of success. The other concept which once again comes into play is that of adding or maximizing existing skills. Drive is a skill. Drive can be cultivated like any other technique in personal capability. This begins with a desire to improve in this space. Once you recognize the value in having exceptional drive, you can work toward developing this important tool. Then, through reading motivational material, attending inspirational seminars, and using day timers and e-schedules to maximize your efficiency and effectiveness, you can begin to build your personal level of stamina and endurance. This is one of those intangible qualities which is among the most crucial in becoming a superachiever. It is common to all high-value individuals. Do all you can to become part of this elite group. Oh, and look at this. We have a quote from Dennis Waitley, born in 1933 and still going strong. God bless him. American motivational speaker, consultant, and author, and on, educator, and so on. Fighter pilot, officer, amazing human being. Success is almost totally dependent upon drive and persistence. The extra energy required to make another effort or try another approach is the secret of winning. And I'm gonna just jump in before you pass it on. I'm gonna say one thing that always strikes me about this word. I have a business partner who's a great guy, and one of the things he asks me all the time is, he says, JC, where do you get your drive? Where do you get your drive? He says, I just don't have that kind of drive because, I have that personality where I'm always kind of pushing my partners to meet again, to do something, to take steps and so forth. And he wants to know where, and it's a fascinating subject. As I say in this little essay, it's almost a mystery why I have that drive and he doesn't. Or certainly not to the same extent. Not that he has no drive, but he doesn't have the kind of drive that I have, especially for that project, the Vita Support MD company that we've been building together for the last 6 years. And I'd love to hear what the ladies have to say about this, because I really do think it's a fascinating question, and it is almost mysterious.
All right, let's turn to Dr. Diane Chuback right away. Your thoughts on the word drive?
Well, so I must admit, I'm a bit of a thief. John received a birthday gift from his cousin in California, and it was a book about Warren Buffett. And I immediately stole it.
Hey.
Yes. And the book is this thick. it is just, it's his biography, and it's written by wonderful, wonderful writer. She's became famous in financial writing, but she was chosen by Warren to write his biography. Her name was Alice Schroeder. So I can't even tell you how much I'm enjoying this book. I'm not even halfway through with it. But, when I think of the word drive, it's always the question that people are asking Warren Buffett. He's been labeled the richest man in the world. Some years he's the richest, some not. But, he's always up there in the top 10. How did you do it, Warren? What do you do? What's your secret? What's your drive? Why do you do the things you do? And so, it's really funny. In the book, he talks a lot about these internal motivators. And, I think Deborah touched on that in a previous show. What are the external motivators? What are the internal motivators? What are the things that you do for appearances, or what are the things that truly make you feel like a whole person, and that's what drives you to do something. And so Warren Buffett gives full credit to his father for telling him, he needs to pay more attention to his internal scorecard. And he contrasts this with his mother, and he really talks about how his mother was always an extremely unhappy person. And I think, he in all the examples he gives of her, and he talks about how she was very into her external scorecard, keeping score with, keeping up appearances, what people think, worrying too much about, its judgment of others and things like that. But then, did that ever equate to true happiness for her? And it never seemed to. But Warren kind of, he marched to the beat of his own drum. He realized early on he had a very strong drive for making money. As a very young child, he worked in his grandfather's grocery store, and he learned how to make money. He learned the exchange of goods for money. He, at a very early age, he became an entrepreneur, started selling things door to door. He just got such a lift from that. So whatever that internal drive was, that was truly feeding his soul. And that, he was following his father's advice to keep track of that internal scorecard. And when you then extrapolate this, fast forward it to who he is now, I mean, Warren is like, his whole thing was about buying, undervalued stocks and buying undervalued businesses, but just looking and knowing where the potential was for it. And then talks about his partner, Charlie Munger. And he says that, he met Charlie in the 1950s at a dinner party. And he said that I never met somebody who had the exact same drive as me, the exact same way of going about it. And he said, Charlie Munger marches to the beat of his own music. And it's music that likely no one else is listening to. But that's okay, because that's what drives you. And that is really the crux of his success.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I think we can all learn a lot from Warren Buffett in terms of dreaming and drive and everything else. Dr. Deborah Waitley, your thoughts on the word drive?
Yes, I just love this discussion, all the points that are being brought up. And just like John said, for me too, this word is baffling. It's so hard, difficult to get a handle on, and it is very mysterious. And I think a lot of it has to do with there is this innate drive that humans are born with. And that, as Diane touched on, that's really you see it early on. Some children are more motivated or have more drive because it's internal. It's like this internal built-in fuel. And some are more externally motivated or have that drive. And I know there's assessments out there that can measure your drive, and you can see how some people have more than others. And it's really interesting to look at. Thank you, Diane, for that story on Warren Buffett, because it starts to make it a little more tangible that how that plays out in your life. So I just know that part of it's innate, that everyone has a drive to survive, and maybe some others have more of a drive to thrive. So there's more that can be had, and that studies have been proven that internal drive is going to get you further in life than the external. The external can only take you so far. And Diane brought up the concept of scorecards. If you go through by an external scorecard, that's great. You are going to achieve a certain amount. But it's that internal scorecard that's going to catapult you so much further and deeper. And I'm thinking about consulting in organizations where we worked with sales forces, and they had their performance scorecards, and we looked at all the data and all their measurements, and the managers are always trying to motivate people and get them to have that drive to get those numbers up. And we would have to meet one-on-one and help them identify what was motivating them from within. And once we were able to have them connect with that, those scores went higher than they'd ever gone before. So there's really some magic to that you can make tangible.
Yeah, I was going to say a few moments ago, but I wanted to hear what the ladies had to say first. I don't think there's any question that every single person on this panel has been driven since birth. We're all driven to accomplish what we've accomplished. And I remember, when I was a teacher, there's an unspoken rule in the field of education. Not all educators, and be careful with that, but enough that it affects some situations that if you're a little too driven, if you're doing a little too well, they want to pull you back into the fold, because if anybody looks too good, that makes the rest of us look not as good, which is the exact opposite of how I was raised. And I know the three of you are the same way. Mm-hmm. And one time the principal called me in. He said, the other teachers on the staff are, kind of ticked off at you. They think you're a little too driven, a little too motivated to do this, that, and the other thing. I said, well, if they're ticked off about that, I guess that's their issue. I'm not going to dumb it down. And he said, well, I don't know how much longer I can keep you working here if you don't change, or at least slow down a little. And I said, if I lose my position here because I'm too driven, I'm okay with that. And he just laughed and he said, in that case, do your thing. He goes, I'll deal with them as they come in. And then I thought of this basketball coach, Rick Carlisle. They brought him in to coach the Detroit Pistons. And in 2 consecutive years, they won 50 games, exactly 50 games, 50 and 32. And they made the playoffs, and they almost won the title each year, but they didn't. And after 2 years of greatness, he got fired. It made no sense. Like, what's going on here? You have one of the best coaches in the game, and he's taken your team from not so good to winning 50 games each year. Turns out he was too driven.
he was also always thinking about basketball. Okay, my point guard needs to do this on Friday. I have to do this. I have to design this play. And he would walk through the office, and secretaries would say, "Good morning, Rick. How are you today?" And he wouldn't respond because he didn't hear them. He was driven about, I got to get to practice. I have to do this. And the owner didn't like that. And he said, I need you to respect my people, because some of these people have been with me for 30 years. You've only been here 2. And Rick Carlisle had no idea what he was talking about. He goes, I don't think I disrespected anybody. He goes, well, they think you did, because you walked right past them without saying hello. He said, if you had said hello every morning, you'd still be the coach, but you didn't, so I'm going to let you go. And I remember Rick Carlisle in the paper saying, I'm okay with that. I'm losing my job because I was too driven. And then he went to another team and won the NBA title. It's like, well, that's what happens, right? So I guess some people can think you're too driven, but I don't see how that's even possible to be too driven. John, obviously you wrote about this word in the book, and I know you're extremely driven. You just spoke about that a few moments ago. Is there a such thing as being too driven? I don't think there is, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I suppose there is. I mean, I think that there's a possibility to be too much of anything. It depends on what your end goals are.
Right.
In other words, I know people who are hell-bent, let's say, on being the world's greatest cardiac surgeon, and they've come pretty close to achieving that status by all objective terms. But if you look at the rest of their life, it's pretty much a wasteland of destruction.
Oh, right.
I mean, if you're going to be so driven in what now it's personal choice. Doesn't make it wrong, but it just now if we go to other ideas like balance and so forth, happiness, and other aspects of life that might include friends, family, social circumstances, etc. If your career is absolutely everything to the extent that you wind up very much alone and isolated and unhappy and so forth, then I think it can be pathological. Anything can be taken to a pathological extent. So yes, I think you can be too driven. I think sometimes people need to pull back and be pulled back by the people around them who care about them and say, hey, listen, you're losing everybody here. Now, there are others that we don't, that don't really care. The end result, and that might even be better for humanity. The guy or gal who spends their entire life in the research lab coming up with new ideas for vaccines and et cetera, who may have a social circumstance that other people might find paltry or disappointing, they're okay with it. So that's all part of this subject. How much drive for work, how much drive for good health, how much drive for marital happiness, how much drive for concern with your children's well-being, et cetera. Balance is another word that we'll talk a lot about in this program. But you can have a lot of drive before you get to that pathological point. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of an old English proverb, which I include in my book, The Straight A Handbook, Paul. As you remember, one of my older sisters, Lily, when she was off at college at NYU and I was still in high school, she shared this with me. It says, he that would thrive must rise at 5. Mm-hmm. He that hath thriven may lie till 7. And he that by the plow would thrive himself must either hold or drive. So what it's telling us is that if we're going to be successful and achieve those goals that we want, you better start early in the morning, and you better work hard throughout the day, and you better be willing to do the job yourself. You better be able to put your hands on the plow and drive the plow yourself if you want a field that is tilled and prepared for planting and for harvest. And so there's a lot of hard work involved in success, and you have to have the drive for it. And to your point, Paul, with very few exceptions, when it really gets to a degree of pathology and destruction of other areas of one's life, or to the detriment of people around them, of course, and that's what Dr. Dennis Waitley includes in his beautiful definition and modification of Earl Nightingale's definition of success: the progressive realization of a worthy goal, as long as that pursuit doesn't affect other people in some kind of a harmful way. So I just love how these ideas are coming around and around full circle, and one dovetailing into the next.
Yeah, and that's what I meant overall about being. It can't be too driven. I didn't mean to the pathological extent of the point you're running over people or knocking people out of your way. I just meant in terms of I have this goal to achieve. I can take everybody with me. Let's go do it because I can see the mountaintop. We're almost there, and then settling. Maybe I'll just back off a little bit and settle for third place. What the heck?
No, I understand. I certainly understand your point of view, but I want our listeners to understand, because when you go out there, Paul, and then you have the Warren Buffetts of the world who became mega billionaires, and seems to be a pretty good guy and seems to be a pretty balanced guy and ethical person and so on and so forth. But then you watch movies like Wolf of Wall Street, and we want our listeners to know that we're not, there are limits to what is appropriate, ethical, and quite frankly, attractive in one's personality in terms of how far they'll go to achieve certain kinds of success. So there are limits. There are boundaries and fences that ultimately exist. And we want our listeners to know that we are all, proposing that everybody works within a framework that is healthy, and certainly never detrimental to anyone else, because there are people out there, quite frankly, that do cross those lines, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. I think we can safely say, tell me if you agree with this or not, the four of us are not pathologically driven to the detriment of others. So
I would say three of us, but I wouldn't say who. Yes, all four of us. All four of us, absolutely. Just kidding.
All right. And we thank you again for listening and watching to the Blueprint to Your Success Story. This has been episode 6, Essential Power Words in a Workbook, all written by Dr. John A. Chuback. We'll see you next time for episode 7. And let's say farewell to our panel for today from California, Dr. Deborah Waitley, psychologist and author. Thank you for everything today, and we'll see you for episode 7.
Looking forward to it. And I just want a reminder, take a chance, make your stand.
That's right.
Keep your drive so you can thrive. That's all I want to say. And I'll see you next time.
And Dr. John A. Chuback will have those T-shirts and coffee mugs available next week. So. Dr. Diane Chuback, CEO Chuback Medical Group, thank you very much. We'll see you next time as well.
Thank you very much. We'll also see a T-shirt that John recently bought called "I'm Not for Everyone." So, which means he does have that pathological drive once in a while.
So I do have to be pulled back from the fences on occasion. And keeps a very robust harness around me at all times.
All right, sir. And Dr. John A. Chuback, of course, the author, physician surgeon from New Jersey, author of this book. Thank you, sir, for everything. We'll see you next time for episode 7.
Thanks very much. I just pray that if everyone listening learns from this program a fraction of what I'm learning as in participating, I think it should be a very, very valuable tool in people's lives.